So this is one of my favorite power hours to teach and one of my favorite topics to talk about, because everybody has their own inviting process and the way that they do this. This is something that I mastered pretty early on for myself in my business, and I really leaned into what was the most natural for me. For most of you that have been on my other calls, you probably already know that I'm pretty down to earth, simple. I like to be very productive and effective. But what you might not know is when I first started coaching all that time ago, I was super shy, super introverted, very affected by pretty much everybody and everything. I was very unconfident and had pretty low self-esteem coming into coaching, as a lot of us do, right? Like, we're all sort of in this place where we're working on ourselves and we're finding results, and that little tiny spark is kind of what pushes us to become coaches and want to share that, right? So for me, just so you guys know, when I started my business, I did not use any friends or family at all. For 2 years straight, I actually kind of blocked my inside world and inner circle out of this one. And I really focused on creating an environment and a space and a place where I could just be myself 100%. I didn't let my husband on my Instagram or my Facebook page. Like, I really just needed to be able to find myself and figure out how I was going to do this, because I really wanted to be successful at it. And I really, really believed in the work that I was doing more than anything else. And I think one thing that's so important is really understanding the invitation that you're making. And that's what I think a lot of coaches are struggling to do, because they're thinking way too far ahead, or they're thinking about things that they have zero control over, like the sale and other people spending money if they're going to do the program, or you're just kind of in that place of lacking confidence or belief, or even just, honestly, you guys, the understanding of how the invite works and the mechanics behind it. And that's really what this power hour is going to go over. I'm going to teach you my process and what I've done, how I've learned how to make this natural. If you did the connection power hour and you did the networking power hour before this one, obviously you're going to have a little bit more gumption going into this, and you're going to have people to actually talk to, but it really doesn't matter. Because again, I try and make these power hours for anybody, whether you started coaching today or you've been doing it for as long as I have. So hopefully you'll get something out of it. But the main thing about this, and I call this the superpower hour on purpose, because I really believe that inviting is our superpower. And if you can really just tap into it, you guys, literally no goal that you set will go unachieved. And if you really think about it, if you became a master inviter, right? And that's like the one thing you got good at as a coach, what could you do with that? Anything, right? You can get people in the door. That's really all we actually have control over. We don't have control over any much beyond that point. So honestly, you guys, diving in and really doing the work to get good at this part of it is worth the sacrifice that it takes to get there. And that's going to look different for everybody. So the very first thing, and the one thing I wanted to start with, is just the power of your invitation really is determined by, is anybody looking at your tracker? It's right there at the top. It's determined by the amount of connection you have behind it. It's really simple, right? If you're throwing out odd invites all over the place and there's nothing that you're really grasping onto, then it's going to be hard for other people to grasp onto it too. So I'm going to teach you some really basic things to just kind of kick it off. So number one, the very first thing I'm going to have you guys do is open your phones, and I'm going to have you create a note, a new note, and I'm going to teach you how I track. Again, you guys know me. I don't like bells and whistles. Technology hates my guts. If I touch it, it stops working. So the easiest way for me to track is in a note in my phone. And I create a new note every single month with the month's title at the top. Super simple. And all I do, you guys, when I'm working throughout the month, if I've made a connection, meaning It's not a network, right? Because I don't track that. If I made a connection with somebody and I started talking to them about a program or Beachbody, their name goes there. Wherever I'm talking to them, I put a little thing, IG, Facebook, whatever. And then I just write whatever program I've been talking to them about. And that's it, right? And so I just have this whole list of names under all these different months in my phone. So what happens is, a lot of the time, if I'm like at the end of the month and I haven't hit Success Club, I'll go back through my months past and I'll re-follow up with people that maybe I forgot about, that maybe I haven't invited this month yet. It creates this really strong pipeline of leads if you always have that right in your hand wherever you are. I think, you know, I'm pretty old school. If you looked at my desk, there's like papers all over it with pens. I like to write things down and have like physical copies of things that I'm doing. But this is the one thing that I track consistently and look at every single day. It's super simple. It takes 5 seconds. So regardless of who you're connecting with, their name can go on that list, and you can use that list all month long to just go back and retouch base. There's some really awesome strategies for following up. So I'm just going to teach you a couple of my favorite, because this will help you guys get more opportunity to re-invite. Because you guys know, like sometimes you'll invite somebody and then they ghost you, and then you have to kind of like restart the conversation. A couple of my favorite things to do, my most favorite is to kind of do the takeaway approach, which is also kind of a sales technique. But in a follow-up scenario, it's kind of like when you invite somebody, maybe you've even sent them the link and they're ready to buy, but then they ghost you and they don't talk to you for a couple of days, or they just stop responding to you. I always try to give people a window of opportunity to write back. So if it's been 24 hours, then I'll usually message them and I'll say, hey, I didn't forget about you. Things just really got busy. No matter where the conversation let off, that's always what I say. Hey, I didn't forget about you. And I say that very specifically because I think a lot of the times when people ghost us, it's maybe on purpose, but if it's not on purpose, then the more time that goes by, the more awkward it gets. And sometimes, like when somebody's in that position where they're about to purchase something that they're kind of unsure about, mostly because they're unsure of themselves, like they kind of go through this little freak out moment. And it's really up to us as coaches. And this is where I think a lot of coaches are self-conscious about being like annoying or like being too pushy. But honestly, you guys, people need us in that moment more than any other moment. And if you shy away from following up or being persistent, you're going to lose more than you're going to win. And so are the people that you're talking to. And we want everybody to win. And I think when you look at it from this perspective, hey, I didn't forget about you. I'm still here. Things got super busy on my end. Where did we leave off? It immediately takes the pressure from them ghosting you, right? And you put it all on yourself. So it immediately kind of starts the conversation over. And it allows that window of them to be like, oh, I did look at it, but it's so expensive. Or I did look at it, but I just forgot. Or whatever it is. And then all of a sudden you've got a conversation going again. Super simple. So I want you guys to start a note so that you can start putting people's names down, so that you can start learning how to kind of follow up with your invitations throughout the month. And you can know exactly who they are, where you were talking to them, and what you were talking to them about. Super simple, right? So the next thing, and you guys can do this on the back of your Power Hour tracker, or you can even do it in this little note that you just made, which is preferable. But I want you guys to create a list of 5 potential challengers. I'm gonna watch everyone for a second, because some people are like, oh, I know exactly who that is. And some people are like, I don't have anyone to write down. So as you're kind of thinking about this, who are 5 people this month that you could reach out to and help? This month's a little easier because it's December, so friends and family are probably a little more top of mind. And it's probably a little less scary to invite them just because it's the holidays and people are in the mood to spend money. But as far as this specific thing goes, if you've been doing the network and you've been doing the connecting, even if you have a challenge group, this can be people who have fallen off that you haven't talked to in a really long time, old customers, old challengers, people that you need to reignite. You can put 5 people's names down, okay? And then we're gonna do the same thing, but we're gonna create a list of 5 potential coaches. This can be current people in your challenge groups. This can be people that you're talking to about joining your challenge that might actually benefit more from becoming a coach right away. Whatever this is, I want you to write down as many as you can, as many as you have, as many as you can think of, because we're gonna do a little activity with that later down the line. But the most important thing, you guys, when you are running a business and when you're trying to be a Beachbody coach, is to have this consistent line of leads. And again, this whole system is to kind of teach you how to do that for yourself, right? And the goal really is to have somebody in each position of our business at all times. So somebody that we're trying to invite to our challenge, somebody that we're trying to invite to coaching, someone in our challenge group, someone in our challenge group who's about to become a coach, right? If you can have somebody in that category at all times, it's just sort of flowing, right? And it takes a couple months to get there, but once you do, and once you kind of create that flow in your business and you understand how to identify and look for those positions and where people are at, then it's a lot easier for you to invite and help give people next steps. It's really simple. So the first thing that we're gonna do tonight is gauge how much we're each individually inviting already. Which I get a lot of things from all over the spectrum. Like, I'm inviting so many people, right? Here's the very, very first thing that's important to know. An invitation, right? If you've done the networking, connecting, an invitation is when you actually say to someone, I have a challenge group going, this is the program. Is this something that sounds like you would want to do? It's sending a direct link to somebody who you've already had a conversation with, right? The networking's been done, the connection has been made, right? And now the last piece of it is happening, the invitation, the formal invite. Hey, do you want to join my challenge group? Hey, do you want to become a coach? It's one of those two things. It's pretty simple, right? So that is the actual invitation. So when I talk to you about, like, have you been making invitations? There's a couple different gauges for this, because obviously we make the one-on-one invites, right? We make public invites in our posts or call to actions, which could be considered invites. There's a whole bunch of different ways that we can do this. For me personally, the only ones that actually really I count are the ones that are me talking to another human being and actually inviting them formally into my challenge group, my life, or to become a coach, right? Anything that I post, like my public stories or my Instagram, those are all really call to actions. Those are, passive invites, if you will. So there's kind of formal, more direct, and then there's kind of passive inviting. So what I want us to do is kind of look at our Instagram or Facebook or wherever you do your more passive inviting, like on social media. And I just want you to kind of go through your last 10 posts. This can be on Facebook or Instagram. And I want you to just count how many times you invited or called to action in those last 10 posts. And the reason that I want to do that is because I think a lot of people think that they're inviting all the time, when really they're not. They're kind of beating around the bush and they're not really getting to the meat of the invitation, right? So a call to action is really more what we do with networking and connecting, in the, like, trying to get people to engage, trying to get people to comment, trying to get people to respond. Those are really call to actions. Hey, if you worked out today, post below. Hey, if you agree with this, let me know. Like, those are real call to actions, just things where we're trying to get people to take action in some kind of way. And that's good to do with every single post that you do. I try to do that with every single response and conversations that I have with people. I try and give them a very subtle call to action. Like I end a lot of my conversations with a question because I want them to feel like they're in control and they're the ones making the decisions about what's going on. So if I'm saying things like, you know, hey, tell me your story, catch me up. And then they'll tell me their story and I'll be like, thank you. Your story is amazing. Thank you for sharing it with me. Here's what I think based on what you said. And then I'll ask them things like, does this sound like something that you would like, right? I'm trying to get their validation and their affirmation all the time so that they feel in control, so they feel confident, so they feel like they're the ones that are making the decision. Even when I send direct links to people, it's always, okay, so here's everything we talked about. Here's the link. Take a look at it. Let me know what you think. It's simple. And then they usually write back, this looks awesome. Let's do it. Or this looks great. I bought it, or whatever. By the time I actually send somebody a link, I'm like 99% sure that we're done deal, solid, the sale's made, the commitment's happening. She's going to go in my challenge group and we're going to get moving on, right? Like that's really, I think a lot of coaches struggle with that point of sale because everything sort of builds up to it and it's just not the most important part, right? It's a very critical part and it's one of the only conversations up to that point where they actually invest in a challenge pack or a product or a program to get into your challenge group. Like we have a lot of control as far as helping them believe in themselves, building their confidence, giving them the right tools, giving them the information that they need to make a confident decision moving forward with this program or not. We have a lot of control in that little space, in that little moment right before they actually purchase, right? Once they've actually made the sale, then it's really up to them at that point to do anything, right? All we can do at that point is, you know, we've given them the structure, is we can give them accountability and support by putting them in our groups. So I think understanding that part of it too, just kind of lets you relax a little bit and realize like, I don't have control if somebody's gonna buy something or not. All I have control over as a coach is to make sure that I'm inviting, to make sure that what I'm doing feels right to me, feels good to the person that I'm talking to and feels right for them. And I'm creating a safe environment. Simple. Right? It just doesn't have to be any more complicated than that. Just remembering that you're both just people and that we're trying to all work on our independent individual journeys, right? Together. And that's what makes it cool, is really the fun part of it. So once you have your list of 5 challengers and 5 coaches and you've reviewed your last 10 posts and you've gotten an idea, this is really what it's going to look like. You either have people on your lists or you don't, and you either have invited and called to action or you haven't. The coolest part about this is that today you can start creating a list in any of those categories if you don't have anything in it, right? It doesn't really matter. Like, that's the other part of this, is a lot of coaches spend a lot of time worrying and stressing and feeling bad about themselves or their business or, you know, where it's going or how much progress they haven't made or where they should be instead of where they are, when really none of that matters. All that matters is right now in this moment today, when you have actual ability to change. That's it. Change happens in the now, right? So that's what we're going to focus on. So if you do have a lot of call to actions and you are inviting openly a lot to your challenge group on your Instagram and your Facebook and social media, and you're talking about what you're working on and what's going on in your challenge groups and what you're trying to accomplish and your goals and all of those things, awesome. If it's not working to get you customers and new challengers and new coaches, is something missing? Probably. Right? And this is really where I want to kind of fit the pieces together, because it's just like networking, right? When people begin with the invite and then they try and make a connection, it doesn't really work, because most of the time they're not networking at all. But if you network and then you connect with people and then you invite them, then it works, right? So the invite is no different. You just got to make sure all your pieces are in play and in place so that your invites will actually work. So the very first thing that I like to teach is making sure that every coach knows what we're actually trying to do for people, right? Because having confidence behind your invitation is hard, especially when you're a new coach, because you're like, how am I supposed to help somebody when I'm not in shape myself, or I've never run a challenge group? How am I supposed to do this, right? So like inviting is really like this, it's almost like you're just like, well, I'm going to fake it, or I'm going to throw this out there and see if it's going to work. And I remember thinking when I was brand new, like, I'm just going to come off like a 15-star diamond coach because nobody knows the difference. Like nobody knows how long I've been coaching. Nobody knows like if I'm good at this or not. Like I'm just going to try and be the coach that I'm trying to become right now and act the way that coach would act. And that's really from the day one, how I kind of started the invite process with people. I just went into it with that confidence. And even though like I didn't always feel that, what I really was working towards was becoming confident in that and becoming that consistent with it and becoming that person who could do it that way without any of the, you know, self-doubt and disbelief and all of these. Like I wanted to get rid of that part and really focus on the positive things. So the very first thing that I think is really simple and important for coaches to understand is when you're inviting somebody, what you're really doing is giving them the opportunity for structure, accountability, and support. I call it the full solution. Super simple. You can also call a challenge pack the full solution, right? It's really interesting how that works, but it's the structure, accountability, and support. That's what we're inviting people to. Here's your program. Here's your support group. Here's your accountability. What else do you need? Right? What else do you need? If you can provide that for people, then you're good. So the very first thing you need to ask yourself with this specific box, and you can write it down in Feared It, Faced It, or whatever you want. You can write this down. What is your structure currently right now with your challengers? If you look at your challenge group, what program are you focused on? Or what is your focus for the month, right? What programs or supplements are you promoting to create structure for people? If it's Beachbody On Demand and Shakeology, awesome, that's what it is. I want you to identify sort of the structure that you're giving to people, that you're inviting people to. This part of it is the part that a lot of people think they're doing, but they're not. Like I cannot tell you guys how many people, how many coaches, like months and months and months into coaching still don't have a challenge group or a community group or an app group. They don't have a group of any kind, even though that's like the very first, most basic step of coaching, right? Create a group. So you've got a gathering place for the people that you want to help. It's really simple. That is largely the structure. Create your group and create a program or a system or a focus for that group so that everybody's working towards a common goal. Weight loss, getting healthier, you know, living a healthy, more fulfilling life. It's pretty simple, so it doesn't need to be anything crazy. The accountability part of it was the most confusing part of it for me. I was like, I don't freaking know how to keep people accountable. Like, I know how to do it for myself, but not everybody works like me, right? So what do we have to help people stay accountable? How do you do that? Guys, this is honestly, and I'm telling you this with the most love in my heart, like when you fall off and get back on and fall off and get back on, this is going to be the hardest thing for you ever, is to create accountability and respect and credibility in your business. Like, and again, it's not about having a perfect transformation. It's actually not about what program you're doing or any of that. What it's about is showing up every single day, regardless of the weather around you. If it's storming, if it's lightning, if it's sunny, if it's happy, if it's sad, if it's mad, like you show up and you work regardless. And that, honestly, you guys, holds that accountability piece together more than anything else, because so much of the time when people are coming into this, what they need is someone who's showing up so that they'll show up, because it creates like this little mutual pressure and this mutual just excitement and this mutual bond, between you and your challengers and this group, like when they see everybody else showing up and they're not, like it makes you kind of want to show up. And eventually over time, when you show up more and more, they show up more and more, that accountability within themselves kind of creates a habit, and then it becomes their lifestyle, right? It's not like this magic potion, but we have our app trackers, we have our challenge groups, we have coaching people one-on-one when they fall off track as saying, hey, where are you? I noticed that you're gone. Like I fell off too because Thanksgiving, like let's get back on, right? Like that is the accountability portion of it. We aren't responsible for people's results. We're just responsible to them. We're just responsible to show up and do our job and do the best that we can every single day, right? So the structure, the accountability, and then the support. Those three things, I really believe if you can conquer in your challenge group, and you can think about that when you're inviting people, and your challenge for the month checks all three of those boxes. Here's the program we're gonna work on. Where are we gonna focus? In our challenge group and in the app, right? I'm gonna support you every single day. Here's the structure of our group. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we're gonna do live, or Tuesday, Thursday, we're gonna do workouts together, or whatever. Like create that little support system so that when you invite people, it doesn't feel like an empty invite. It feels like you're actually inviting them to something that's gonna help them, right? And probably help you. It's really important to have that piece of this puzzle figured out, so that when you're actually inviting, it doesn't feel like an empty invite, like I just said, okay? So figure out for yourself what's going on with you in those categories. What's your current structure in your challenge groups, or what program are you supporting? How are you holding people accountable currently? And what's your support system like? Do you guys do group workouts together? Do you like one-on-one message people? I do progress checks every Monday in my challenge groups. That's really important. That's also considered an accountability piece that I really like. My girls know that happens every Monday, no matter what. So regardless of what they've done the week before or what's going on the weekend, on Monday, they know I'm always going to ask that question. So just creating some structure and some team culture within your challenge group. And you guys, to be honest, like a lot of it doesn't have to change. If you can sit down and write it out one time and then consistently use that system for 90 days, that's really when you're going to see if it's working or not. The other part of this is most of the time, you guys, it takes 30 to 60 days for anything new that you implement to really take root and for you to really be like, this is working or this isn't working. And most people stop doing whatever they're doing within a few weeks because they're like, they just either lose energy or momentum, or they aren't seeing the immediate gains that they wanted to, but it doesn't really work like that, right? Just like our workouts and our nutrition, it takes longer than 3 weeks for those results to come. The 3 weeks is really just the buildup, the foundation, the ground setting, like all of those things, right? So you've got to kind of have patience and grace with yourself through this process. But those 3 things are really what we're trying to invite people to. The next part of this, and this is a really simple trick and tip if you don't do this already, on Instagram, you have to have a certain amount of followers to add links into your stories, but everybody can add a website into their bio. So a really smart thing to do when you are starting a new challenge group is to create a link. This is also something that I've just learned that's really helping me right now, is cutting out the steps in between people saying, yes, I want to get in shape and into my challenge group. So a lot of coaches have people fill out forms and then they go through, you know, this whole series of emails, or they, you know, I don't know, there's so many different structures, or they go to a website, or they click a button, or they read this info, or watch this video, or all of this stuff. For me personally, I've always talked to every single person that I invite. Like for me, if I don't, then I don't have that connection with them. And it's really hard for me to get them started. So when you're starting your challenge group, a really simple tip is to copy and paste the URL of your challenge group from Facebook and you can go to tinyurl.com or create a Wufoo link even if you want to for your challenge group, and put that in the link in your bio. So whenever you're creating invites, you can say directly, instead of like DM me or post your email below or any of that, like I've found the most effective way to get someone into a conversation and invite them into my challenge group is to say, hey, click on the link and ask to join my challenge group. And it takes them right to my challenge group. What were those links? So one of them is Wufoo, which is, hang on, this, or tinyurl.com. So those are really just simple. TinyURL is awesome because it takes a really long web address and it shrinks it into something tiny. And I always do tinyurl.com/whatever my challenge group is going to be, if it's available. Jace's holiday hotness. I don't know, that was stupid. But you know what I'm saying? Like you can customize it to whatever you want, and then you can put it right in the link in your bio on Instagram. And that way they don't have to fill out a form. They don't have to watch a video. What they get is a request into your challenge group. And I always make people answer questions before they join my groups. So right there is sort of my funnel. Do you have a Beachbody coach? Do you have Beachbody on demand? What's your goal? Those are my 3 questions. If they don't answer them, then I direct message them and say, hey, did you answer the questions? Or I'll just ask them again, right in that box. But what's cool about that is if they already have coaches or they already have Beachbody on demand, it makes the conversations way more simple, right? And it saves so much time. Not only that, but they're already right there on Facebook, ready to join your group. And they took the initiative. Again, you gave them the option to go and make that choice to join. It's been working for me, just because I think so much on Instagram especially is, I don't know, that part of it, at least on my Instagram feed, has been the most effective way to invite people lately. And what I've noticed, what's cool about that is I do it in my Instagram stories too, because I can also connect links in there. And instead of like having people answer polls all the time or direct message me or whatever, they can just join my challenge group right there. And I can just directly message them on Facebook and have a conversation, right? Let's see. I wish there was a way to do that for the app tracker. I would love that. I don't know if that's going to, I don't know if that's going to be a possibility, because we still have to email everybody an invite for that, but they are changing it and making a lot of updates. So maybe that's a suggestion we can make. I guess that's really the most effective if you're only running challenge groups in the app. And if you are, let's see, do you have to be their coach to be in your challenge group? Do you have to be their coach? So for me, so Greg's kind of a newer coach. For me, yes. Like I don't coach other coaches' challengers because I feel like that's a conflict of interest, and that's kind of stepping on toes. So that's like my baseline requirement is people have to add me as their coach to work with me. It's pretty simple. She said, once they answer questions, do you stay in the DM with information, or do you send them to a landing page with a challenge pack? No. You guys listen. Again, this is just me. I personally work the best one-on-one. I think things are so much more authentic for me to just have a conversation with somebody about it. Like I don't want to not take the time to have that conversation. So while I think landing pages and forms and websites and all of that stuff is amazing, for me personally, especially if you're new, you have to learn how to talk to people. Like until you get so big that you can't manage, right? Like if you're Jamie who's sitting here, like if you've got a huge amount of people and volume coming into you, like sometimes I have to do a landing page. Sometimes I have to do a form. But I'm telling you, like the smarter you get about how you work, and again, this direct invite to your challenge group, those 3 kind of filtering questions is going to do so much of the work for you up front, that just having the conversation with people about the challenge packs, about the products, is way more effective, I think, a way more effective selling tool than just sending them to a page, right? There's got to be some groundwork and legwork. And I'm guessing that people who do send people to landing pages either have really good ones, or they've had some kind of connection before they send them there, so they sort of know what they're getting into. Hey, I'm going to send you this to this page, take a look through it, and there's some instruction there. It's not just some like blind sending them somewhere else for information. They're coming to you for information, so give them the information, right? Let's see. Does your group have to be private versus secret? I think that Instagram or Facebook actually changed that format, and I think those 2 things are basically the same now. My personal group is closed, but people can find it if you give them the link, right? So if it's secret, as long as they have the link, they can find it. At what point do they purchase after you've put them in the Facebook page? I don't put them in my Facebook page until they've purchased. So they request, right? They don't approve them. What it does is it gives me a huge list of people, right, who are interested, who are filtered, that I can message directly and have conversations with. And if they're really interested and they really want to join, then they'll buy the challenge pack from me, because I sell challenge packs, and then I'll add them into the group and welcome them and start them and get them going, right? It's simple. What I love about this process, you guys, is especially when you're trying to master the invitation, like the more steps you put in there, the harder it's going to be for you to manage. And I'm telling you, like working as a higher level coach with higher volume, I can keep it this simple and this effective than you can, right? And if you learn this right from the get-go, when you're a young coach and you're learning how to have conversations, like, I'm never going to tell you to send somebody somewhere else for information. I'm going to have you sit down and have conversations and try and figure out how to talk to people so that you can master this invite process. I'm telling you, if I had somebody message me on Instagram today that was like, hey, I'm interested in your challenge group, I could have the challenge pack sold and then added into my challenge group by the end of the day. The conversations aren't super long when you get really good at them. Right? Remember the other week when we did the networking one, when I said you can network with somebody and connect with somebody and invite somebody all in the same day. You can do that 3-step process in 10 minutes. It's just practicing it. It's understanding the process and using it, right? And really learning how, number 1, you network with people, how you connect with people, and how you're going to invite them. You've got to really nail down your process, and that really only comes through failure, which is really unfortunate, but also awesome, because you burn a lot of bridges, but you learn really fast. And that's why I say, if you guys can sacrifice for a minute to master this part of this process, it's going to save you so much time in the end. And if you can just keep it as simple as possible, if it's feeling complicated or overwhelming, you either need to find someone who can simplify it and put it in smaller terms so that you're not like driving yourself crazy, or you need to sit down and reinvent the process for yourself. Because just because this is how I do it doesn't mean it's going to be the best way for you. And if you have an idea already in your mind, like this is what works for me, stick with it. Stop trying to do everything the way everybody else is doing it. Do whatever is working for you and stick with it. I figured out my personal invitation flow within the first couple of weeks of coaching, because I had so many conversations and I burned so many bridges, and I made such an idiot out of myself because I said way too much or way too little so much in the beginning that all it did was whittle down to the one time that it worked. And I use that over and over and over and over and over again. And here I am 8 years later, still using that same technique because it's rock solid for me. It's not rocket science, right? It's just figuring out people's pain points, what they're wanting to change, and confidently giving them the options that you think are going to help them on that path and really challenging them to make that commitment. Are you in? Are you not? Are you going to do this? Are you ready? And being the kind of coach that really believes in your challenge group, in your process, in the way that you coach people, in your personal vision and belief in what you are trying to accomplish, the more confident you are in that process, it just helps you work with other people so much better. Let's see. Do you have Beachbody on demand, or what are your goals? Yeah, super simple. The questions were, are you working with a coach? Do you have Beachbody on demand? And what are your current goals? Super simple. So that's just kind of a little hack that I've been using that's working currently in the market right now. So hopefully that will give you guys some opportunity to create a little list of conversations. So here's what I want to try and do. Since you created your list of potential challengers, I want you guys to try and send invites to your challenge group. And they can be 2 people from social media, from past challengers. We can do, let's see what time it's 7:41. So we'll just do 1. So I want you to pick 1 person off that list, and I want you to create an invite that's one-on-one to them. So I want you to direct message them. And it's really simple. A lot of the times you guys and I'll just talk as you guys kind of think through this, but if it's people from social media, there's a bunch of different ways that you could do it. If there are people that are commenting on your posts or your polls or whatever, like, I personally believe the short and sweet method is always the most effective for me. Hey, I noticed you answered my poll today. Hey, I was just thinking about you. I have this new challenge coming up. Where are you at with your fitness goals? That's like my invite. It's not, hey, do you want to join my challenge group? It's not, hey, this is all the stuff that I have going on. It's, hey, what's going on with you? What are you doing? Hey, I noticed you today, right? Simple, short, sweet, real, easy. Don't overcomplicate it. I think the tendency when you're a newer coach is there's so many different ones, but sometimes we say way too much, way too fast, because we're 15 steps ahead of where the person that we're talking to is. So one of the easiest things for me always is to just genuinely try and create a connection, right? So that I can create an invite opportunity intentionally in that moment. So first connection, then the invite, right? So I always try to start with a connection piece first and then lead to the invitation. And again, that can happen in 30 seconds. That can happen in 1 response back. That can happen fast or slow. It's just sort of depending on the temperature that you have with that specific person. But for the moment right now, what I want you to do is learn how to create that instant connection and invite almost simultaneously. So if it's somebody in your challenge group who you haven't talked to for a long time, who's kind of been inactive, you can, I love just reaching out and say, hey, I was thinking about you. I have this new program that launched today. It's called BAR. It's super awesome. I'm trying to get people set up on stuff before 2020 hits. I'm trying to get people in the habit now. Where are you at with things? Right? So you can kind of leak little pieces of information and try and spark some, curiosity or whatever. But really, you're kind of starting with that connection. Hey, I'm thinking about you and I think this would be good for you or whatever. If it's somebody who you've already been talking to, then use that follow-up trick that I told you already. Hey, I didn't forget about you. It's been a couple days since we chatted. Where are you at with this? Where did we leave off? Catch me up. Right? And just create that open door again to invite them into your challenge this month. If it's somebody that you're just kind of cold reaching out to, right? Which we don't really do in this process. It's got to be somebody who you've already networked with and already connected with on some level. If they're, in your Instagram polls today and it's not really related to fitness, you can even say things like, hey, I noticed that you've been super active on my page lately. I've noticed you've liked my stuff and you've been commenting and you've been in my polls. Like, what's going on with you? Are you working? Like, do you exercise? Do you work out? Like, what's your story? And it's shocking, you guys, how many people are following you mostly for fitness already. So that connection to fitness has already been made. Like, a lot of people are afraid to open that conversation and open that door and talk about fitness or ask people what their goals are when they've never had a conversation about that before. But again, it's really just connecting the dots. Like, this person is actively following me, actively inviting, like, involved. I need to reach out to them and try and make a connection and figure out what they are connecting to. It's so simple, right? And once you figure that out, then you can invite them to continue following your life or your challenge group or to become a coach. And if they're not ready yet, maybe they will be next month and they'll go on your list, right? Simple. Let me just make sure I'm not missing any questions. I find it easy to ask questions, but challenging to segue naturally into our solution with our group community. I'm telling you, the easiest thing to ask is to have them tell you their story. It's so simple. They'll give you literally everything you need to know to segue into that. Well, I've been doing on and off diets, or I tried this and it didn't work, or I always lose 10 pounds and then I fall off, right? They'll tell you everything that you need to know. If you're really good at asking questions and you're trying to segue into an invite, right? Like, you've got to make sure that the connection has been made with health and fitness and not just like, I love your dog, I love your kids, they're awesome. Like, it's got to be, why do you follow me? Or have you followed me for a long time? Or I noticed that you've been following me for a long time. Or I've noticed that you've commented on stuff. Or I've noticed that you like my stuff all the time. Like, I just wanted to reach out and try and connect. Like, that goes such a long way. Then they'll say things like, yeah, I have been following you since, you had your baby 2 years ago. And, I just love this and this and this. And they'll tell you exactly what you need to know. The segue for me is always easiest when I can get some backstory. Because you can say, these are your pain points. This is what we do. And this is how Beachbody works. And this is how our challenge groups work. I don't know if that sounds like something that would be a better system for you. Like, are you looking for more structure or accountability or support, right? I mean, it's really just learning how, and again, that comes from practice. It comes from you looking at the conversation and their response and creatively thinking your way into, how can I respond to this and segue into a solution for this person, right? They have to present a problem first, or else you're just being gross, telling them information that they don't care about, right? So hopefully that was helpful. Let's see. Sorry, perhaps I missed it. So do you not use the challenge app and only use Facebook groups? So this is what I personally do. I have one community fitness page on Facebook, and I have one app challenge I know you guys are shocked that I have something so simple in place, but for me, I can't be 1,000 places at one time and still have quality. Like, for me, my love language is quality time. So if I'm spread in a million places, then I'm not effective. Other people are better at that. So again, it's kind of learning how you work the best. For me, I have a community page, right, for every single person that I coach. And then I have an app for every single person that I coach. And throughout the year, sometimes I'll do like a separate group challenge once a quarter or whatever. But I actually love that. And here's the other thinking, because this is really where things change for me, is challenge groups were starting like every 60 days back in the day. And sometimes I'd have like 3 or 4 challenge groups going with different programs. And I was like, this is crazy. And people were getting not bored, but they lose steam, 3 weeks in, 4 weeks in. So what I've found is, in my community page, if I create a focus for the month, and then I'm constantly promoting whatever program or new thing that's coming out, it just gives people next steps. They start lining up what they're going to do. And what's also cool is the people who are doing MM100 are seeing the people who are doing bar, which they want to do next. right? And people who are doing the work are seeing people who are doing MM100. And so everybody sort of is seeing what everybody else is doing. And the goal is exercise every day, nutrition every day, right? And accountability every day. So the common goal is really what I focus on in the community. The tools, the structure, all of that stuff, I make it known from the get-go that it's going to be individualized to each person because we're all different. So my groups aren't so set on, we're doing this program and we're doing this nutrition regimen and that's it. Like some people really like doing that and they generally go to other coaches who run challenge groups directly focused on those specific programs, right? But for me, I like to have something that can run 24/7, 365 all the time because I'm trying to create a lifestyle for people. So I just do it a little different. And so my app, what I do with my app and what I tell my people coming in is this is where I do and focus my one-on-one coaching. And that's what I do, incentives or recognition based off of. And I recognize people who are working. It helps me see immediately who's doing their workouts, who's using their supplements, and who isn't, right? So it just cuts a lot of work out for me. And I let them know that in the beginning, like if you want one-on-one attention and you want to be part of the recognition or you want to be part of, you know, this and this and this, like I do all that through the app. So you have to log your workouts, you have to log your shakes, and you have to show your work if you want to be part of that process. It's so simple. It's so simple. I find myself not chasing people. And what's cool about that is at the end of every month, you can go into your app tracker and you can see who logged, who didn't, and you can send 1 or 2 emails a month to people who are kind of falling off instead of like every day wondering where they are, trying to tag people every day, right? You can message them and be like, hey, I noticed you fell off this week. Where are you at? And for me, that just works a lot easier. Yes. So once my challenger is in my group, they're in there forever. And they're stuck with me for life. But that's why I have coaches in my organization who started 8 years ago with me and customers who I've had for 8 years who are still continually, like I've had Shakeology HD customers that have been on Shakeology as long as I have, that never became coaches. They're just customers, but they're consistent and they do stuff. I'm telling you guys, they are your foundation. Those are the people who support every new coach and every new customer coming in are going to be supported by your community. So you sort of have to learn how to take care of both entities, your current, your new, right? And just learning how to sort of manage them in the easiest way possible and leverage them so that they can help each other is awesome. Like, isn't that what a fitness community really should be? Something that you guys can do for life, right? There's a lot of people who end up working for free with a lot of customers, which is a completely different subject for another night, which we can go over, but that's kind of how I run it. So let's hurry and go through this last part of it so that I can make sure we get through it. I just wanted to talk through inviting coaches really fast because that's kind of a different game. But there was one thing I was gonna talk about. Oh, this is the last thing I wanted to mention about inviting on social media. This is really important to understand. Your first invite is almost never gonna land. Your second invite is almost never gonna land. Your third invite is really when people start paying attention. Your fourth invite is when people start getting involved in the conversation. And your fifth invite is really when people are like, freaking A, I guess I'm gonna do this. Like she got me, right? Like the way that people think is exactly that way. The first time they see it, they're like, oh, whatever. It's just Jace doing her stupid thing. Every month she does it. The second invite, if I'm doing it right and I'm speaking to the right people or the right person, they're gonna be like, oh, they're gonna listen a little more, right? By the third time I'm talking about my challenge group and what I'm doing this month, that person is engaged. They're like, all right, she's freaking talking directly to me. She's like listing out my problems and you know, like she's talking to me, and then they'll probably say something. And then the fourth invite, they'll get a little more involved. They'll probably direct message you and like start a conversation. And by the fifth time, you should be able to get them into your group. A lot of coaches give up after their first invite without anyone responding. Think about that. Think about how many times you've invited to your challenge group and given up because nobody responded. But when you know that process, right, I think you need at least a good 5 to 7 days to invite to your challenge every month, where you're just inviting every day. Because they want to see that consistency, that passion, that focus, how driven you are to really get people going on this challenge that you've been talking about. I've found that works a lot more effectively. So don't give up. Like, really create that system in your mind. Like, okay, I'm going to invite Monday, and then I'm going to invite Monday night, and then I'm going to invite Tuesday morning, and then I'm going to invite Tuesday evening, right? And I'm going to try and get my 5 invites out there so that people know I'm serious, so that people can really get engaged. Greg said, what about people that reach out to you, but then they don't do anything about it? Then it's pretty simple, right? Doesn't that kind of answer it right there? I honestly, you guys, I don't chase people. I put their names down, right? If I've made that connection and we've had a conversation about fitness, and then I follow up with them. Because if it's not their time, there's nothing I can do about it. I can't make somebody commit. I can't make somebody buy something. All I can do is be there for them, try and create structure and support them. That's it. And once I've done that, until they make the next step, there's nothing for me to work on them with, right? It's really simple. Don't chase people to death. Like, what you really should be focused on is finding your yeses, right? Every conversation for me is passing. And one thing that I really like, that I've been trying to teach a lot more lately is, you know, there's a lot of coaches who get caught up in the stress of Success Club and the stress of, I have to find 3 people a month. But I find that when you run your business one coach and one challenger at a time, and that's what you're always looking for every day, you're like, I'm going to find my challenger or I'm going to find my coach. When you go one coach and one challenger at a time, you end up doing a lot more. And you hit those goals every month without having to push yourself to the point of exhaustion or burnout, right? Because you're focused every day on the same thing. I got to get a new customer. I got to get a new coach. That's my goal. That's my focus. And that's, you know, the lifestyle sort of that I've created, the way that I speak, the way that I talk, the way that I post, the way that I do everything is trying to accomplish that goal, to work up to my next challenger, to my next coach, so that I can get my next person started, right? Let's see. The rule on follow-ups, if no response, you still do the 5 times rule and then follow up. I think honestly, you guys, like, the more practiced you get at this point, you start to get really good at learning when people are serious and when they aren't. And the bottom line is, if they're serious, it does not matter what you throw at them, they'll do it. And that's true. Like, think about your own journey. This is always the best reference. Think about yourself. What did you do? You had excuses, right? You went through hard things. Did any of that matter when you were ready to change? No. None of it. I was on food stamps. We were 6 figures in debt. I bought my first challenge pack. Actually, it wasn't even a challenge pack. I bought P90X off an infomercial at 4 a.m. in the morning because I was so sick of myself on my credit card. I had $0, right? And I did it. If people are ready, they're ready. They don't care what you throw at them. They're ready to hear whatever you have to say, and they're going to go for it. You learn really slowly how to kind of navigate those conversations. But for me, you know, and again, I'm 8 years into this, and I've had a lot of practice with no's. A no is just a not right now, right? For me, they just go on the list, and now you've had a conversation with me, so you're stuck with me for life. That's how I think about it. And I'm always going to think of you, and I'm always going to invite you, And it's just an expectation, right? I try not to bog myself down with the things that I can't control, which is people buying stuff. They're in control of that. People starting their workouts, they're in control of that. Whether they follow the nutrition programs or not, they're in control of that. I focus on what I can control and what I can help them with, and that's it. And I stay happy, and I stay fulfilled, and I stay content, and I stay excited to continue what I'm doing, because that attitude helps you find people who are eager to work. And that's all you care about, right? Do you still love all the people who aren't ready right now? Yes. Because your door is always open, right? You're not closing the door. They can come in anytime. That's the beautiful thing about social media. When you're inviting every day, whatever day it is that that person becomes ready, where they don't care what you throw at them, they're going to do it, they'll do it. And you'll be there, right? Let's see. So when you have a conversation 3 times and then you go back, what language are you using then when you've had 3 no's from the same person? I guess it depends on what their no's are. You know, if somebody's telling me no, 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 at that, like, I have an open door policy. When I hear the first no, I say, let me know when you're ready. I'm here. Right? My invites are open all the time. Like, the connections made, they know me. They're going to think of me when they're ready. So I don't stress, again, about stuff I can't control. If they say no for 8 months in a row, it doesn't matter. The 9th month, if I have a challenge, I'm going to think of them and say, hey, I'm starting this month. Are you ready? No. Okay. I'll talk to you next month. Like, it just really, you don't have to beat a dead horse. Like, just focus on your next challenger and your next coach. I'm telling you, it'll just power you forward. And what starts to happen, you guys, is all these no's that you had 2 months ago are going to start saying yes today. And all those no's that were happening last year are going to turn into yeses this year. Eventually, it all works out. I've had people who follow me for 7 years and they're like, I guess it's time for me to start, right? And I'm like, okay, great. And then we start. Like, it doesn't matter how long it takes them. That's not in our control. It's in their control. All we can do is try to encourage them and help them get to that point where they feel confident enough that what they're about to do is actually going to happen. Meaning they're going to get their program and they're going to do the workout. That's what they're afraid of. They're afraid of not following through themselves, right? So understanding that in that process too helps you sort of talk through all that stuff. You learn how to talk through all these things that are going on in their mind that's actually keeping them from making that commitment in the first place. That just comes with experience and having conversations a lot, right? You learn to recognize the signs. You learn to recognize when somebody can be pushed in that moment in a positive way. At the end of the day, we're all here to help them become better, right? We're here to support them and sometimes be their only support system. So making sure that they know that and that that's what you're thinking about, right, is really critical, because when you tell them what you're thinking about and what your priorities are and what you're trying to accomplish with them, and you give them your plan, this is what we're going to do, right? And you speak that way. What's happening really on the other end is all these things are saying to themselves in their head. You're right there just giving them all the confidence and answers that they need without having to ask. Let's see. It's 8 o'clock already. So this last little section of inviting coaches, the most important thing with this, and you guys can actually do this little portion on your own after this call if you want. Again, it's kind of about networking, connecting, and kind of getting the conversations going. The first thing that I think is really important is being able to create some leverage for yourself. And this is with your challenge groups also. So setting a start date, either for your next coach sneak peek or your next new coach training, or, your next new group of coaches coming in, whatever it is, pick a date so that you've got like a hard line to talk about and leverage. That's important. If you don't have a start date, like again, my challenge group runs 24/7, 365. So it starts on the 1st of every single month. And that's the date that I hardline. But what's cool about that is, the focus for the month, I can continue inviting to the whole entire month. Like there's never a time where I can't invite to my group, really, because I'm not just inviting to a new program. Does that make sense? I don't know if that makes sense. But anyway, with coaching, if you create little slides in your Instagram stories and you kind of follow the guide of share your why you're doing it, how coaching has helped you, maybe share the benefits of the coaching opportunity, and then who you're kind of looking for, and just hit some pain points maybe that you struggled with or ones that you can confidently help people overcome. And then you take little polls to see who's interested. It's a great way to create leads again and just create conversations. It's a good way to network trying to find new coaches. Just creating those polls. The very last two things, and this is one of my favorite things to do, and this is how I get, I would say 90% of the coaches that I sign up. I ask a really simple question. Again, short and sweet is kind of my motto. So with my challengers and my challenge groups, a lot of the time I message them out of the blue, like on a Tuesday at 3 p.m. And I say, have you ever thought about coaching? And that's all I say. And they'll usually come back to me out of curiosity and say, not really. I've never thought about it. And what I can say then is, well, here's why I asked you. And then I list all of the reasons why that specific person comes to my mind when I think about coaching and how they've helped in the challenge group, and I build their confidence in that moment. And I talk a lot about helping other people and what serving others every day has done for me, how the accountability deepens. I often talk about like, you're doing so good in our challenge group. Like, I think it's time for a next step. Like, let's challenge you a little further. Just kind of depending on whatever their response is. Most of the time it's not really or no. And that's my favorite answer, because then I get to educate them on what it is. And oftentimes they just have never thought about it, or no one's ever asked them, so they don't know anything about it. And once you kind of explain it to them and you help paint that vision, like, it becomes a yes really quick. But that simple question, without really any build up or anything behind it, just asking them the question, I've found is the most effective thing for me, just because it allows the door to open on that conversation. So that's kind of my goal for you guys tonight, is to find someone in your challenge group where it works the best with this, or somebody on social media that you've networked or connected with that maybe has done Beachbody programs for a long time, but has never had a coach or has never been in a challenge group. They're great people to ask about coaching, because they already know the drill, right? They've been doing it forever. They love Beachbody already, but they maybe just don't even know what the coaching opportunity is. And just opening that door for them and then telling them about it, just give them the option. Again, we have no control whether people are going to say yes or no, but I again want you to think about sort of your own journey. Would you ever have become a coach if somebody hadn't asked you? I wouldn't have. No freaking way. It took my coach like 4 times to get me to say yes, right? And it really, honestly, at the time was just, I had built so many amazing connections in that group, and so many of them were becoming coaches that I was like, all right, well, I guess we'll just see what this is about, right? And 45 days later, I was diamond. And it just happened, right? So I think when we don't ask is when we lose. When we don't ask is when we fail. You're never going to fail for asking. That's always a win, right? So that's kind of your challenge. And if you actually have a conversation after asking someone that question, I want you to message me and tell me how it went, because that's my favorite thing. And then the very last part of it, follow up with all your responses and polls. So if you do create a little coaching sneak peek on your Instagram stories, it's really good to go live about it. But if you follow sort of that 3-slide process, I've found if you do more slides than that on your Instagram stories, it's kind of redundant and people kind of don't like that as much. But if you keep it short and sweet, and you share your why, you talk about when your next group is starting, and you're just trying to get interest, then it creates a lot of opportunity for invitations. So hopefully you guys got something out of this. I know we kind of veered in a bunch of different directions there for a minute, but if you can go through, your right side of it and check off some of these boxes, then I feel like you're making progress, right? And hopefully you understand the invite process a little bit better. As far as what you specifically say, there's a lot of coaches who go through scripts and they go through role plays and they do all this kind of stuff with you. For me personally, I always like to help my coaches figure out how to communicate in their language. Because at the end of the day, I want this to be natural for them and I want them to be able to do this forever, right? And the more like the scripts and the aiding and all of those things I think are really beneficial to just kind of see it laid out and how it works. But if you have a strong upline coach and you're in the middle of a conversation and you don't know what to say, then that's when you use your coach support groups or text your coach or other fellow coaches in your group and you say, hey, this is where we're at in this conversation. This is what she said. What do I say next? What would you say? Like, use the resources that you have already. And you'll learn so much faster. I like to have my coaches, when they're first starting, to say, hey, if you're having a conversation with somebody and you get stuck, let me know. Because I love walking people through that process. And I'm telling you guys, once I do it with them one time, they know it. They know the structure of how the conversation can go. And that's really all they have to follow. It's just like when I started, it took me 2 weeks of hardcore failure to figure out the language. And once I figured it out for myself, I just used it over and over and over again. So if you've had a success with inviting, where you've had a conversation that started from, somebody else online that you didn't know before, and you made a connection and you made an invite and they made the sale, that's what you should do over and over and over again. Because it worked once, right? If it's never worked, then that's really where you need to assess, do I have all these other things in place? Do I have really strong structure? Am I confident in what I'm actually inviting people to? Do I know what I'm inviting people to, right? Is my invite vague or is it very specific? Does it have a start date? Does it have a structure? Does it have a focus, right? Those are the things that are going to latch people onto what you're doing. If there is no structure, if there is no focus, if there is no start date, right, you have no leverage and you're just inviting to air. And that's hard. That's a hard way to do it. So just get a little bit more intentional with what you're actually inviting people to, so that when you do make your invites and your call to actions and your one-on-one conversations, you can ask people what their story is and you can fit that vision of what they need and the structure into your challenge group, and you'll get it every time. That invite will land and land and land. For anybody that's actually ready to go, they'll do it. And when you get to that point where if you can just have a conversation with somebody and they're ready, that they're gonna buy, it's awesome. Because then instead of chasing the sale, right, you chase the people, you chase your yeses, you chase those people who are ready. And that's way more exciting than chasing something you can't control, right? When you need the sale, it's never going to happen. That's like sales 101. If you need it, it won't happen. Relax, take your conversations one step at a time, one challenger, one coach at a time. And I promise that it will start to land and work for you. So let me know if you guys have any questions. Hopefully this was helpful. There are a few other things. Just let me make sure I didn't miss any. Perfect. And then let me know if you guys do end up getting somebody in a conversation about coaching, if you ask them if they've ever thought about it, because that's exciting for me. And I will see you guys maybe not next week, I guess. This is our last one, but I love you. Thanks for hopping on and going through this with my team. It's been awesome having you all, and I'll let you guys go and enjoy the rest of your night.